You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, social, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. Visit exopolitics.org and sign up to receive our email notifications, news, and information. Be informed and be aware with Exopolitics Today. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Remote viewing the Galactic Federation of Worlds. In December 2020, the father of Israel's space program, Professor Haim Eshed, created an international media frenzy when he described President Donald Trump communicating with an alliance of extraterrestrial races called the Galactic Federation. Eshed said Trump wanted to disclose the truth about alien life, but the Galactic Federation replied that humanity wasn't yet ready. Eshed's impeccable scientific credentials and intimate knowledge of classified space programs meant that his comments about a Galactic Federation monitoring human affairs had to be taken seriously and could not be easily dismissed. This raised a host of questions about whether such an extraterrestrial organization truly existed and was poised to openly intervene in human affairs, as Eshed claimed. Even more importantly, how did Eshed's Galactic Federation relate to previous claims by different researchers, insiders, contactees, etc., dating back several decades concerning the activities of different interplanetary organizations intervening in human affairs or playing a role in the genetic engineering of humanity? In this two-part series of articles, I plan to discuss 5 interplanetary organizations that have been described by different insiders and contactees that are relevant to any discussion of a galactic federation. 3 of them can be easily confused as their membership, functions, and activities can overlap, but nevertheless have significant differences. 2 other interplanetary organizations are often cited as antagonists to the Galactic Federation and are therefore easier to identify. To begin this series, I will open with the efforts of Dr. Courtney Brown, director of the Farsight Institute, to answer some of these key questions raised by Professor Eshed's comments over the existence and activities of a Galactic Federation. Dr. Brown organized a team of 5 remote viewers to gather intelligence on the Galactic Federation in multiple sessions conducted and publicly released in February 2021. He explained his rationale for the remote viewing sessions as follows. Quote, "In quite a number of projects here at Farsight, the words Galactic Federation of Worlds have been used to reference a group of planetary civilizations that seem to be supportive of humanity and opposed to the influence of other groups and species that appear hostile to humanity. Well, now it is time to find out more about what those words mean. Exactly what is the Galactic Federation of Worlds? Or perhaps, who are they? Are they one species or a group of species and civilizations, sort of like a United Nations of the galaxy? Do they have meetings? Do they work together on projects, such as a project that may involve Earth and us humans? Are they a diverse group with diverse interests, or are they all of one mind? And importantly, if they really do desire to help humanity in its hour of need, within the context of a galaxy that contains a significant number of threatening or hostile forces, can the Galactic Federation of Worlds really do something helpful? What are its resources? Moreover, does it really need Earth humans to step up to the plate in order to help us out? Or is it strong enough to help us out regardless of what we humans do?" End quote. The results of the remote viewing sessions yielded many valuable insights into the existence of a Galactic Federation of Worlds and other questions raised by Dr. Brown. This was particularly the case with understanding the Federation's command structure, its internal policy debates over the extent to which it should intervene in human affairs, how its intervention was part of a temporal war over the Earth's future, and what private individuals can do to support the Federation's efforts to assist our planet's evolution in a positive direction. As with previous remote viewing sessions conducted by the Farsight Institute, the sessions were held under blind conditions, and the participants were only told to focus on 2 targets presented to them in sequential order. No details of each target were given in order not to front-load the remote viewer's own personal views and biases into their observations. The 2 targets for the remote viewing sessions were, quote, Target 1, the headquarters of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, / the most relevant meeting of the Galactic Federation of Worlds dealing with the subject of Earth and humanity. Target 2, the command ship for the Galactic Federation of Worlds, responsible for Earth now and its commander. End quote. Each of the remote viewers' reports on the 2 targets were remarkably consistent in their overall observations, even though details varied from case to case. As far as both targets were concerned, there were several notable observations, among which were: the Galactic Federation of Worlds is a large and diverse body holding many viewpoints about how to deal with humanity. There were members of the Galactic Federation of Worlds who were opposed to further intervening in human affairs. The enemy of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, powerful rival extraterrestrial coalitions, had a tight grip over humanity and would not be easy to displace. There were significant armed conflicts between the Galactic Federation of Worlds and its rivals over the Earth, and this had placed great stress on the Federation's military commander. If the Galactic Federation of Worlds stopped its operations, there would be significant planet-wide destruction and Earth would descend into a post-apocalyptic nightmare. The Galactic Federation of Worlds leadership is aware that rival extraterrestrial alliances were more powerful in overall military terms, but the latter would abandon Earth operations if the Galactic Federation of Worlds was committed. The opposing interplanetary forces that the remote viewers are referring to are the Draconian Reptilian, also known as Sakaar Empire, and the Orion Alliance, which have been discussed in previous remote viewing sessions focusing on Nazis and reptilians in Antarctica and US presidential meetings with extraterrestrials. In his evaluation of the data given by the multiple remote viewers, Dr. Brown offered up the following conclusions and insights over these competing extraterrestrial alliances vying over control of humanity. Quote, regarding the Galactic Federation of Worlds, let's pull things together. I will get straight to the point. We humans on Earth need to realize, and soon, that we are in a very precarious situation. The Galactic Federation of Worlds clearly is trying to help us, but the resources are limited. They are up against forces that seem huge, even to them. They do seem to have the ability to help us, but it really looks like they will need our help in order to do it. There were 2 reasons. First, the membership of the Galactic Federation of Worlds seems to be divided. Most of the membership clearly desires to help, but there are huge doubts within the organization regarding their actual ability to do this, especially on the level of military capabilities. Earth is a relatively backwater planet on a peripheral part of the galaxy, so that is a factor in our favor. If opposing galactic forces were to make a major effort to stop the Galactic Federation of Worlds from assisting humanity, well, it seems clear that those opposing forces could push the Galactic Federation of Worlds aside, but on the other hand, are we worth such a major effort? It appears that part of the thinking process of the Galactic Federation of Worlds is the calculation that the opposing forces would not be interested in a major confrontation regarding Earth at this time. If it is going to cost the opposing forces a lot, then they are likely to pass on the big confrontation idea. End quote. The opposing galactic forces, the Draconian Empire and the Orion Alliance, have a powerful hold over humanity through their respective minions and controlled assets, which allow these alien alliances to manipulate humanity's destiny. William Bramley succinctly describes this in his book, Gods of Eden, published in 1993, which traces out centuries of contrived extraterrestrial conflicts through controlled political elites designed to manipulate humanity's evolution. Dr. Brown next draws attention to the long-term involvement of the Galactic Federation of Worlds in human affairs and what this entails. Quote, "Clearly, many in the Galactic Federation of Worlds consider humanity to be a successful end result of a project that they started long ago from an evolutionary point of view, probably one that resulted from a lot of genetic and cultural manipulation and adaptation over a great many years. We are their children, they care for us, and they want to protect us. But what would any parent do if the child does not want to be helped at some point? All parents need to let go to allow their children to determine their own forward path. But if the children openly recognize the challenges that they face, and if these same children then turn to their parents for needed assistance, which parents would not want to help their own children?" So this is the key. The greatest inhibiting factor that the Galactic Federation of Worlds faces right now is internal disagreement. If they were strongly united and wanted to help humanity in its hour of need against a very threatening and hostile set of aggressors, then they would do something with meaningful success. End quote. The idea that one or more extraterrestrial civilizations are responsible for seeding or creating humanity dates back to Erich von Daniken's groundbreaking 1968 book, Chariots of the Gods. He was followed by others, including Zecharia Sitchin, author of The 12th Planet, published in 1976, who devoted considerable attention to extraterrestrials genetically creating our human ancestors, according to ancient records from Sumer and elsewhere. According to Dr. Brown's analysis, drawn from his remote viewing team, the Galactic Federation of Worlds has been involved in human history for a very long time and was part of the genetic seeding of humanity. But there is more than one group of friendly extraterrestrials trying to assist humanity, some of which have been involved in long-term genetic engineering experiments. This has been Dr. Michael Salla. This is the end of Part 1. Part 2 is forthcoming. I have two announcements. One is that the audiobook edition of Space Force, Our Star Trek Future, is now available on Amazon and audible.com. You can get more details from my website. Also, a recording of my webinar, The Untold History of America's Reverse Engineering of Alien Spacecraft, is now available on Vimeo. More details in the description or my website. Thank you for listening and subscribing to Exopolitics Today.